Kenny from We Are Change, and I'm here with the one and only Immortal Technique. Immortal Technique. Now, obviously this country is fucked up. All the politicians are bought out. They're not serving the people. What can we do to begin to take the power back?
Well, other than burning the White House down like the Canadians did way back in the 1800s, I think that the primary solution that people have is, one, to educate themselves. A lot of people don't even know their rights. And another thing they have to realize is that they have to realize what pyramid we're really on. Because right now, as a movement, I feel like a lot of activists are very focused on just the police and just the foot soldiers. Now, these are working class guys. Who are they taking orders from? What's the agenda of the orders? You know what I mean? That's what we need to be focused on. Because people can use these slogans like, oh, in order to get people to not criticize the war, we're going to tell them you got to support the troops. You know, if you don't support the troops, then you're against the war. It's not a question that we don't support the troops, but supporting the troops is a useless slogan that doesn't mean anything. The real question is, do we support the policy that these troops are being forced to carry out in another country? Is that policy beneficial to us? Is that going to help American citizens get a job? Is this going to help them get off of drugs? You know, instead of doing all these incredibly negative things to people, what about the positives that this government's supposed to be offering? You know, and that's what I saw with We Are Change. That's what I saw with Occupy. You know, that's why I thought all their criticisms were useless. People said, oh, you know, Occupy is just homeless people. And I started laughing. We said this in so many interviews. Homeless people? You mean like people who got their homes taken away from them by a government under some predatory loan that they knew they could never pay back? Or drug addicts? Just drug addicts down there. Oh, you mean people who have been thrown into prison for football numbers just because they're addicted to something? Their only crime is they're poor. You know what? That's their crime. Because when you're poor, you're a drunk, but when you're rich, you're an alcoholic, and you can just pretend that, you know, oh, I need treatment, you know. Or let's say you get drunk and you hit 12 people with your car. You know, you don't got $1 billion daddy to tell a lawyer that you need treatment for affluenza. So I think educating ourselves to the not just the premise of what we're dealing with, but also to the pyramid scheme, so we can see exactly who's on top, why they've been there, and how long they've been there. These people that are there haven't just got there. They've been there for a long time, and the reason they act like they own this world is because they think they do.
Do you foresee a second American Revolution? And if so, how do you see it playing out?
You mean a third American Revolution? We had a second one. It was called the Civil War, where a group of states decided that they were going to break off. Now, I know that there are a lot of people that support us in the South, and I don't want to upset you, but listen, don't tell me that the war wasn't over slavery. Yes, it was over states' rights, but in every single charter from states that broke off, they demanded the right to sell other people. So therefore, that negates your point. Don't be on the losing side of history. Don't back individuals that are not people who were about who the movement is supposed to exemplify. Like, I have a lot of friends that are Italian, and they get upset when somebody says something about Christopher Columbus until I explain to them, dude, this is bigger than him. You know, your dad is Italian. He's a better guy than Christopher Columbus. There should be a statue for him, not for a guy who was selling 9 to 12-year-old indigenous women into sexual servitude, not into a mass murderer. You know, let's talk about the real history of America. You can't just sit here and pretend that it was the way it is. For example, there's a mythology among European immigrants when they come to this country, when they say, hey man, you know, my parents and my grandparents pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps to be part of America, and that's a myth. Because in the early 1900s, when people came to America, you did not just apply for citizenship. You had to apply to be white. Because if you didn't get the status of a white person, then you couldn't join the police force, you couldn't join the fire department, you couldn't join unions, you couldn't get a loan secured so you could get out of the ghetto. There were two very famous cases where a guy from Japan came here and he said, I should be categorized as white because my skin is whiter than the whitest white person here. There was a Persian guy whose skin was very light too. And he said, no, look, I come from the Caucasus Mountain region, which is where Caucasian people originate from. How can you tell me I'm not white? And the American government told these two people, we know who's white and who's not. You belong, sir, to a Mongoloid race. This is the racism that people have to listen to. You will not be allowed to have the status of white person in this country. You're a Middle Eastern person. You're not a white person. So unfortunately, this is what we had to deal with. When people first came to this country, that whole idea of, you know, my parents just came from Italy and opened up a pizzeria and everything was fine. Well, they were allowed to join the police force. They were allowed to find city jobs. They were allowed to get a job that had the most best health insurance that exists in a city. I mean, I think that without putting the history of America into context, you lose the beauty of the struggle of everybody. Everybody's struggle, because everybody got treated like dirt when they came here. Irish people, Italian people treated like garbage. Eastern European Jewish people treated like garbage when they got here. Why do we have to keep repeating that experiment every time someone shows up? I think we've grown and matured as a country to the point where we should be better than that. And the problem is that we are now trying to victimize the people who were here way before everybody else was.
Now, you have traveled to Afghanistan and built an orphanage. What was one thing during your travels that really stuck out to you? And was something from the people or something you experienced? What's the message they would want to get across to the world?
Wow, that's a very tough one. I went to Afghanistan with the people from OMEID International, OMEID.org, and we built an orphanage in a school that I'm very proud to say was a very long-lasting achievement, and it was a hard-fought victory, you know what I mean? I would say my experience in Afghanistan taught me that we look at those people and we imagine them in that burqa, we imagine them dressed in their traditional clothes. I think when you look at Afghanistan, you have to see it as a whole picture, you know? You have to see it as a complete entity. You know, in the 70s, there were women that were wearing miniskirts there. There were dudes that had bell-bottoms and long-ass hair. We radicalized those people for our interests in this country. And I say we because we pay taxes to a government that did that. Their purpose was to tell them the Russians want to take away Islam and destroy Islam and your religion. So you have to fight for Islam. You have to radicalize yourself and immerse yourself in this study. And they were like, oh, Jesus, you know, that's the absolute truth. Now, the final story and the final message of the day for me, though, came when all of this information is amassed about Afghanistan and you realize that these are an unconquerable people. That when you read the words of Alexander the Great, he was like, listen, every man here is an Alexander. You know what I mean? I put my foot on the ground and someone pops out from under a stone. In his letters to his mother, he's like, this place can't be conquered. These people cannot be conquered. And what I thought about that was a duality, an ironic duality. Like, if we're willing to fight to the absolute death for our cause, then we'll scare the shit out of the people trying to oppress us. Because the only way you can keep someone down is if you're willing to stay down and hold them on the ground with them. You can't just put your foot on them. You're not that strong. But the problem is this, sir. Think about it. If we're willing to kill off a whole generation to protect our freedom, then that means we lose a whole generation of teachers. We lose a whole generation of doctors. We lose a whole generation of artists. We lose a whole generation of speakers. We lose a whole generation of people that do media and give information to other people. And that's just 5 examples of things that we lose. Revolutions are about completely overturning a system, but they don't guarantee that something better will stand in place, you know? And I think that that's what I got from it. That if we're willing to die for this, we have to realize the consequences that are applied to that. You know, we will wipe out an entire generation of our people, which is why I've always said that violent revolution and that armed struggle is the absolute last, absolute final step. Not in any way, shape, or form to be taken lightly, nor considered, nor even put on the table until it's realistically the only thing that we have left, because every single other right has been taken away from us.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Much love.
Shoot it down, make it clap. I'm going too far, ain't no coming back for me. I'm in the wrong way. They use words to say something, but they really mean something else. And I'm gonna explain to you how. When I say autistic, I don't mean retarded, but a genius light in a world of darkness. But regardless, the world is heartless. Cell phone targets for bombardments. I'm out of shits I used to give. So close to death, I see the lives I used to live. My future kids, I leave them with this tutelage. When I say hip-hop, I don't mean the music. I mean the culture, not the vultures. They're an ulcer. Fucking devils smell like sulfur. Fearless when I spit the flow. I talk with my hands like Cicero. And it won't be funny like Piscopo. This romance and death is miserable. Someone gotta die, make this shit to go. I'm hungry and invincible. One nation indivisible. Betrayed by individuals. Descendants of the criminals that pretended to be biblical. So I'm critical of those bankrupting their spiritual. Double tap, pop the Nina. Collapse your lungs like emphysema. I'll light one up with your subpoena and glow like fish from Fukushima. I think like Christians in the arena, fed to the lions and hyenas, massacred like Indonesia. Gone are the days of Iwo Jima, cause the surge wasn't just troops that we sent to Iraq. It was the surge of money we paid rebels not to shoot back. That's not victory, but that's history. And liberty spoke with slippery. More miscarriage and delivery. Hold on, the green leaves are made of bigotry. So the Fed Reserve ain't shit to me. It's symmetry to tyranny with freedom as its imagery. So I'm firing artillery at every possibility. When my moment comes, fuck sympathy. You just keep fighting with dignity.
Very many people all around the world that have questions about 9/11. I think there are a lot of people in 9/11 Truth. That's one organization that I happen to lend support to specific individuals in because I believe
it's up to us to grasp it and use it efficiently, and that's why we're starting the Change Media University, where we're going to teach you from A to Z how to hunt down corrupt